want to introduce you to Faraz Abraham, who is a Christian minister. He leads a ministry here in the United States, who is originally from a town called Bet Sahur, which is right outside Bethlehem, birthplace of Jesus. Bet Sahur, as you're going to hear him explain in a minute, is the place where the shepherds saw and the wise men saw the angels announce Jesus's birth in the Gospels. And so he is literally from that town. It is a Palestinian village in what we call the West Bank of the Jordan River, that was part of Jordan until 1967, but has always been there. And it is a majority, about 80% Christian village. And it's disappearing. The Christians are leaving. And there's not a lot of debate about why they're leaving. They're not leaving primarily because of the Muslims. They're leaving because of Jewish settlers moved into the town by the Israeli government with funding from the United States, from a lot.
And not a whole lot of people are talking about this. And remember what I said? I said this 2 months ago. About 2 months ago, I told you guys, I said, they're expanding into Beit Sahura, and almost nobody was talking about it at the time. There were only a few media outlets, such as Mondo Weiss and some other smaller media outlets, that were talking about this. Very few people were talking about it. And that really surprised me, because I'm thinking, okay, here you have Jewish fanatics, Jewish terrorists expanding into a very old Christian community in the West Bank, and they are expanding into this Christian community called Beit Sahura. And it's amazing because, like I've said, for decades they were telling us, well, the Zionists and the Christians are natural allies against Islamo-fascism and Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the Taliban. And they were telling us this stuff for decades and decades. And then they began to turn on the Christians in the West Bank. And for some very strange reason, there wasn't a whole lot of talking about it. I wonder why. Is that a coincidence? Anyone? Perhaps it's just a coincidence that this never really made major headlines when it was beginning to happen a number of months ago. And my father and I looked into the Arabic media sources, and we found some Arab media sources talking about this. And we read an interview, or we actually watched an interview. My father translated it for me. And I showed some quotes from that interview in which this Palestinian man in Beit Sahur, who was in charge of cultural preservation in that area, was telling the interviewer, the Jewish settlers are planning on building 3,000 settler homes in Beit Sahur. That's a massive Jewish settlement, 3,000 homes. And this is all happening under the superintendents of Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, under the superintendents of Jerusalem, the city which St. John calls Sodom and Egypt, and really which is Mystery Babylon. And here is Hucksterby and Jack Hibbs and the rest of the Zio gang, John Hagee, wanting us to think that Jerusalem is not Babylon, it's not Sodom, it's not Egypt. St. John was wrong, by the way. It's actually not Sodom. No. Jerusalem is the city that we must revere and support. And here is Jerusalem stabbing the Christians in the back. After decades of American Christian support, after decades of Christians in America being Israel's biggest ally, what does Israel do? Stabs the Christians in the back, lying to us that, well, the Israelis and the Christians are the allies, or they are the bulwark against the expansion of Islamo-fascism, and we have to stand together. And our problem is not with the Christians, our problem is with the Islamists and the terrorists. And then I remember within recent years, the Israeli government was starting to talk about how, well, the Muslims in the West Bank are persecuting the Christian Palestinians. But they never told us about the settlers. Why did they want us to think that the Muslims in the West Bank were attacking the Christians, but they didn't want us to talk about the settlers? Because they still want us to be in this paradigm of, oh, well, the Zios and the Christians are allies against this Islamo-fascist threat, and the Palestinian Muslims are also the problem, and they're a problem against the Christians, so we have to go against the Palestinian Muslims to save the Christians of the West Bank, to save the Palestinian Christians, when the reality is, Israeli snipers have killed Christians. You read the story of an Israeli sniper taking aim at a mother and daughter on church grounds in Gaza, in one of the oldest churches in the world, killing both of them. You read about the attacks on the only two churches in Gaza, the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church. You read about now how Jewish fanatics are expanding into one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, in Beit Sahura. Very, very little talk about this coming from the mainstream media. You may read something from Al Jazeera, you may read something from Mondoweiss, but these are not Western mainstream sources. We don't hear the New York Times talking about this, the Washington Post talking about this. We're not seeing the Wall Street Journal talking about this. But now that Tucker Carlson is talking about this, this is going to become an international headline, and you may just see the Zio media outlets coming out of the woodwork to say, oh, look, Tucker Carlson is pushing some anti-Semitic drivel, saying that now we're trying to wipe out the Christians of the West Bank. And maybe the New York Times will talk about this. Maybe some Western media outlets will shed light on this darkness and will get some attention. But the fact of the matter is that this reality of Jewish lunatics, fanatics, trying to wipe out the Christians of the West Bank is going to add further pressure to the pressure cooker that Israel is on top of right now. Israel right now is lying on a pressure cooker, and that pressure cooker is Western frustration and Western rage and anger and animosity building up against Israel. We have the Epstein scandal. We have the Gaza genocide. We have AIPAC. We have the Israel lobby reality. The reality that so many of our politicians are under the influence of Zio donors, the Zionist donor class. All of these things, all of these factors are adding to the pressure cooker. And now we're reading about what now? Jewish fanatics under the superintendence of the Israeli government trying to wipe out the Christian population of the West Bank in the name of Jewish supremacism, in the name of God gave us the land. God gave us the land. And why is the mainstream media not talking about this? Why do we have to rely on Tucker Carlson, who the Jewish donor class calls an anti-Semite? Why do we have to rely on this anti-Semite? I say that with sarcasm. Why do we have to rely on this anti-Semite to learn about this? Why aren't the mainstream media sources talking about this? Why aren't the Zionist media sources talking about this? Why aren't we seeing this on the Jerusalem Post? Why aren't we seeing this on the New York Times? Why do we have to rely on this supposed anti-Semite for this news? And what this man is saying is not a lie. People may say, oh, this is a lie. And you can read the comments. Some of the comments section has some Zio bots in it. But I read one comment, obviously from some Zio bot, some Hasbarat or Hasbara bot, however you want to say it. I saw this comment underneath this video saying, you know, Tucker, I'm a big fan of yours, but, you know, this video is just terrible. Anytime someone says, I'm a big fan of yours, but this video is, you know, fill in the blank, add in your insult, your derogatory remark, add in your not very helpful criticism, that person was never your fan. That person's a liar. He wants to make you think that he was a fan so that you can somehow kowtow to him and appease him. But the reality is that those people were never your fans. But this person says, you know, I'm a big fan of yours, Tucker, but this video, you're just spreading Qatari propaganda. It's not propaganda. For one thing, it's not bullshit, because my father and I looked into this. We've looked into the Palestinian media outlets and what they've been saying within recent months. We looked into Mondoweiss and what Mondoweiss has been saying within recent months, and they have reports confirming what Tucker Carlson is saying here. So this is going to add to the pressure cooker. Just like when ISIS was beheading Christians in Syria, Iraq, and Egypt, and the whole Western world was saying, why aren't we doing something about this? Christians are being beheaded, people are being burned alive, and all this stuff. Now we're going to see this massive pressure, this massive anger coming from the Western Christian world against Israel. That's what we're going to be seeing. And it's already there. Make no mistake, it's already there. We were already seeing the presaging signs. We saw Charlie Kirk himself turning against Israel. So it's already there, but it's only going to get worse, and it's only going to intensify. So let me show you guys something here. Here is me, and I was talking about this about 2 months ago, and I said this is going to become an international story. This is what I said. Here, I'll read. I'll play the clip real quick. Hold on. Now, believe me, I think this is going to become an international headline. I think that this settler expansionism into one of the oldest Christian communities in the world is going to become an international headline. A headline. And if it does become an international headline, they're going to start talking about how all the Christians are now turning to anti-Semitism and how Palestinian Christians are anti-Semites. And it's not just the Muslims. Oh, I thought it was that the Christians and the Jews are natural allies against Islamism, against Islamofascism. Isn't that what, what's her name was pushing all the time? Isn't that what, what's her name? That lady, Pamela Geller? Isn't that what she was pushing all the time? The Jews and the Christians have to unite as a front in the front lines against Islamofascism. Yeah, and now the Christians are waking up to this nonsense. And they're going to start talking about persecution against Christians in the West Bank. I mean, they already are, but they're going to talk about it more as time goes on. And Tucker Carlson has been talking about it. So now they're talking about Christian anti-Semitism. So now no longer Christians and Jews are allies. They got these 1,000 pastors, but the 1,000 pastors, no one's listening to them. They got 300 subscribers. They're getting 3 views on their videos on YouTube. No one's listening to them. You got some pastor from bumfuck Delaware. He's got like 10 people in his church. I told you guys, this is going to become an international headline. I said this 2 months ago. I said this whole thing's going to become an international headline. This story of Jewish fanatics attacking Christians in the West Bank, it's going to become an international headline. And look at what's happening now. Tucker Carlson is talking about this. What do they accuse Tucker Carlson of? How do they label Tucker Carlson? They label him as what? An anti-Semite. And what did I say? I said this whole thing with Christians being persecuted by Jews in the West Bank is going to become an international headline, and they're going to start saying, oh, look, the Christians in the West are turning to anti-Semitism because they're bringing up the fact that Christians are being persecuted in the West Bank by settlers, by Jewish fanatics. And look, the Christians, they're not our allies anymore. They're no longer our allies. They're just like the Muslims now. We thought the Christians were our friends. We thought the Christians were our friends. But now they're all anti-Semites. They've now entered the fold of Tucker Carlson. They're all anti-Semites, guys. They're no different than the Muslims. They're just as bad as the Muslims. So now that Tucker Carlson is the biggest name that's bringing this up, now they're going to try to label all of the dialogue on persecution against Christians by Jews in the West Bank as an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, because they don't want you talking about this. They want to cover it up. So if you bring this up, they're going to say, oh, you're following, and they're already saying this. Oh, you're following Qatari propaganda. This is a Qatari anti-Semitic narrative. So now they've come up with this label to just write anyone off for bringing up this reality. The label is, you're a Qatari stooge. You are a Qatari mouthpiece. You're a propagandist for Qatar. You're just like Tucker Carlson, or you're anti-Semitic for bringing this up.
This is kind of, I mean, I've been there, but it's hard. I didn't fully digest this, I guess, at the time. So how about right now? You're an American. You live in the United States. You've been here a long time. Yes. Could you go and get on one of those roads?
Let me explain it this way. Imagine you are in San Diego.
Yeah.
And then a group of people from Mexico come to San Diego and take a piece of property.
Yes.
And they build fence around it. And then all of a sudden, they plant a Mexican flag. Imagine they come and they build fence around this property. And now it cuts your property in half, and sometimes it slices it up. So San Diego becomes fragmented. And they set up this fence around it. They take the water resources. They build walls, sniper towers, and all of a sudden you see the Mexican army coming to protect those new settlers. And those settlers...
And that's exactly what Israel does. This is how they are slowly annexing the West Bank. They build these outposts. Now, they call them settlements or outposts. They're really just trailer parks or shed parks. They'll say, oh, there's a Jewish town that's been just recently built. And then you look at the town and it's like a shed with a family of 5 living inside of it, and they call themselves indigenous, but they're ordering pizza, and the delivery guy on a moped comes over and gives them a box of pizza, and they eat it, and they say they're indigenous or whatever. Meanwhile, they're cutting down people's olive groves, and olives take decades to actually produce serious yields, but they call the olive farmers non-indigenous, but the pizza eaters who are living in sheds, they're the indigenous people. Anyway, that's just a little side note. But yeah, they'll say, oh, there's a new Jewish town that's been built, and it's a shed with 5 people. And so they'll build a new road to connect that little shed with another shed or a group of sheds. And then they'll try to connect those shed houses or trailer parks with a big Jewish settlement. And then they'll say, you see, this is now all Jewish territory. And they'll put soldiers there. And then they will put checkpoints to make sure that any Palestinians driving by don't have any weapons on them. But really, the whole purpose of these checkpoints is to make life as miserable as possible and to really discourage Palestinians from living in the West Bank because they want to drive the Palestinians out. So because this policy is really systematic on the part of the Israeli government, they are saying, well, you know, this is all being done to fight against terrorism, but now they're doing the same thing to the Christians, to the Christian areas. So this really has nothing to do with fighting Islamic terrorism. This has everything to do with Jewish supremacism and everything to do with purging the Palestinians out, because now they're going after the predominantly Christian area of Beit Sahura, which is a part of the greater Bethlehem area, which is really overall quite a Christian area, considering the fact that this is where Jesus Christ himself was born. So this is exactly what the Israelis are doing. Because the United States government has said, well, Israel, you know, you're not going to annex the West Bank. We're going to stop you from doing that because we made a deal with the Saudis and the Qataris and the UAE that you're not going to annex the West Bank. So don't be naughty, Israel. You're being very naughty right now. So what is Israel doing? Israel is slowly taking the West Bank. They're slowly annexing it by building the settlement outposts, by building these trailer parks and these shed parks and calling them Jewish towns and settlements when they're really just a bunch of riffraff bums and hooligans living off of pizza deliveries. And so then you have the ambassador for Zionism, Mr. Huckabee or Hucksterby, and he is there to oversee the whole thing and to say amen, and he gives his pastoral blessing on this Jewish expansionism on Christian territories. In the name of Christianity, by the way, he's doing all of this, and he will sit there and say, well, there is no Palestine, there's no such thing as Palestinians, there is no West Bank, it's all Judea and Samaria. And why is Huckabee saying this? Because Mr. Huckabee / Hucksterby is an acolyte of Antichrist Israel, and so he doesn't really give a damn about the Christian population. Now, he says he's a Christian, but is he really a Christian? No. Huckabee is a cult leader. That's what Huckabee is. He is a leader of a Zionist cult in the United States, and he was a pastor in Arkansas. He was a cult leader in Arkansas, and his cult is one of worshiping Israel. That's his cult. They revere the state of Israel. You cannot question the state of Israel. You cannot criticize the state of Israel. You cannot point out the evils of Israel because you have to bless Israel, according to Mr. Huckabee / Hucksterby. Because in their cult, in order to have salvation, you have to be pro-Israel. No matter what, you have to be pro-Israel. So for many years, for really decades, they would say salvation is only dependent on one's faith in Jesus Christ and nothing more. But really, there is an addendum to this whole thing. It's a package deal. Salvation is a package deal for these people. It's not just following Jesus, it's also supporting the state of Israel. So your salvation is dependent on supporting this country, this modern day, this recently created country called Israel. You have to support it no matter what. So it's a cult. And it's like that video that I showed you of Musab Hassan Yusuf. He says that Israel is God. I mean, I have to give credit to Mr. Yusuf because out of all of the Zio cult leaders, he's the most honest one. He is saying, I think Israel is God. I wish Huckabee would say that. I honestly wish Huckabee would just say Israel is God so that he can be forthcoming and upfront and honest with us and really tell us what his true theology is. It's the worship of Israel. So Huckabee is there to oversee the project and make sure that it has the blessing of American Christianity, because there is really an American Christianity. It's a heresy, but that's what it is. And so we are watching this systematic persecution and cleansing of one of the oldest Christian populations on earth in the name of being pro-Israel, under the facade of Christianity, because they say that real Christianity is Zionism. but I'll play some more.
Are not friendly neighbors. They're not coming to San Diego to be neighbors. They're coming to take the land from San Diego. And now, if you are a mother, a Christian mother who puts her children in Christian school, and you want, and your school now is behind those new roads that these Mexican settlers built. They built a new road that connects San Diego to Tijuana across the border. And you are a mother who wants to drop off her kids to a school that is
you got to put it in this perspective for Americans to understand. You see, if you want Americans to understand things, just put it in the perspective of America versus Mexico. Anytime we want to make a comparison for Americans to understand a certain geopolitical situation, we always bring up America versus Mexico. You know, why is Russia so pissed off at NATO? Well, let me put it to you this way. Like, look, Russia's invading Ukraine. This is terrible. Okay, let me give you a perspective here. What if Mexico joined BRICS and Russia started doing naval training sessions with the Mexican Navy and began to train the Mexican military to go to war against the United States? America would invade Mexico. Oh, yeah, when you put it that way, it makes sense. So anytime you want Americans to understand a geopolitical situation, just put it in the framework of, okay, imagine America versus Mexico.
Beyond those bypass road only. And this is not theoretical for us. This is reality. When you go to Beit Sahur, you will see the settlements encircling the little town, choking it. It's like slow suffocation.
I showed you guys this last week. Do you guys remember this? I showed you guys the map, and I showed you guys how you have Mala Adumin, and then you have Beit Sahura, and then underneath Beit Sahura, you have the Jewish settlement of Tekoa, and then above Beit Sahura, you have the massive Jewish settlement of, I think it's called Carlson. But anyway, Beit Sahura is effectively surrounded by a bunch of Jewish settlements and shed houses or outposts, trailer parks. And so they're trying to, what they're really doing is they are working to cut the Christian population off from East Jerusalem to make it to make life more difficult for the Christian population there, because East Jerusalem is really the heart of the West Bank. It's really you could say effectively the capital or the metropolitan zone for the West Bank, for the Palestinian territories of the West Bank. So if you cut off the Bethlehem area from East Jerusalem, or effectively make it more difficult for the Christian population there to travel to East Jerusalem, you would make life even more miserable for the local population there, and you would discourage people from further inhabiting the West Bank, thus making it much easier for the Jewish extremists to expand into the Bethlehem area and effectively ethnically purge, or really religiously purge, the Palestinian Christians out of the West Bank.
Prevents it from its natural growth. That story that I told you about the mother is actually my cousin, who takes her children, she has twins and she has a 6-year-old, to the American evangelical school built in Beit Sahur. And with this new settlement they have built, they have set up a roadblock, a checkpoint, where Israeli come and man those checkpoints to protect the settlers. Now, one day she was taking her children to school, and the Israeli army pointed guns at them.
Oh, come on.
Instructing them to let the kids walk across the checkpoint to make it to the school to the other side. Now, this is not an isolated incident. This is not something that happens every once in a while. The army is always present to protect the settlers. So my cousin told her 6-year-old, "You're strong, you can do this, and we can walk through it. The teacher on the other side is going to receive you." As soon as she walked, she held her head up high. She passed through the soldier, and she fainted at the feet of the school staff. Now, this brings a lot of psychological trauma. It brings a lot of nightmares. That's what Christian families in Beit Sahur are experiencing. Now, I remember I told you about this, our home back in Beit Sahur. It's not too far from the school. It's not too far from the new settlement they are building in Beit Sahur. And down the road is the Israeli bypass road, which is only for settlers and Israeli armed vehicles. In 1990, we watch settlers come and go. There was an Israeli army vehicle that stopped. And I was 10 at that time. I saw an Israeli soldier stepping out of the vehicle, pointing a rifle at us, and he started shooting at us.
At you?
We were a bunch of kids. I mean, my siblings, my mother was there, and some of my cousins. He started shooting live ammunition at us. And then my mother
I'll play the rest of it, and then I'll give you guys my commentary.
Rushed us all into the door. She was the last one to get in. She caught a bullet in the back.
Your mother?
Yes, my own mother, who loves the Lord and she loves Jesus. And exit one, she dropped.
Come on.
She dropped on the floor, pool of blood. I heard to the back door, called my dad, my uncle, who was a physician, put pressure on the wound, took her to the hospital.
Wait, you saw this happen?
This in front of my eyes. My own mother.
I'm sorry. I should say we've been talking off camera before we started this interview, and I didn't know the story. It's not in my interview notes, and I detected no bitterness whatsoever in anything that you said. I don't know how.
Okay.
Sorry. So you're just shocking me. I didn't expect to hear that.
Palestinian Christians take the Sermon of the Mount very seriously.
So there's several things that I want to say about this. For one, we know damn well that the Hasbarats, the pro-Israel propagandists, the acolytes of Jerusalem and Israel are going to be all over this interview. They're going to be trying to defame this guy. They're going to be trying to do a character assassination on this guy. How do I know this? Do you guys remember the Palestinian nun from the West Bank who Tucker Carlson interviewed last year? Do you guys remember that? How the acolytes, the Hasbarists, the propagandists for Israel went after this woman. Israel sent its army of propagandists after this nun, and they were going after this woman hard. They were going after this woman with much intensity. And so this interview, in my opinion, is much more effective than the nun interview, because let's be real, the nun wasn't I don't know. There was something about the nun that just, I don't think she appealed to a whole lot of people. I could be wrong. Anyway, this guy, okay, he's a Christian. He is from this Christian area, and he's very clear. He is good at communicating, and he's talking about how the Israelis shot his mom in front of his eyes. So the Hasbarists are going to go after this guy. And why are they going to go after him? Because he is now hitting the heart of the American Christians. He is being interviewed by the biggest conservative interviewer in America and one of the biggest political voices in the world, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is immensely popular in American society. He is by far the most popular political commentator in the United States right now. And so the most popular political commentator is interviewing a Palestinian Christian from Beit Sahur, the predominantly Christian area in the West Bank. And this guy is saying, I watched with my own eyes as the Israelis shot my mother. And so you have who's watching Tucker Carlson? American conservatives. American Christians, evangelical Christians, Catholics, American conservatives are watching Tucker Carlson. And they're watching Tucker Carlson talking to this Palestinian Christian about how the Israelis shot his mother. So people are going to watch this. Who's going to be watching this? American conservatives. And so how is this going to affect them? It's going to get more people to rethink America's alliance with Israel, because who is the biggest supporting demographic for Israel in American society? It's the American conservative demographic. The American conservative population is Israel's most important ally out of all of the demographics living in the United States. And Israel cannot afford to lose the American conservative demographic. It has already lost the liberals. It has already lost the Democrats. It never really had the mainstream American Protestants, the Presbyterians, the Methodists, the Episcopalians, etc., the Anglicans. And so Israel has been clinging on to the American conservative demographic. And who is the biggest political commentator right now for the American conservative movement? It's Tucker Carlson. And who is Tucker Carlson talking to right now? A Palestinian Christian. About what? About what? How the Israelis shot his mother and he saw his own mother being shot right before his eyes. And this guy is talking about what? How the Israeli government is trying to wipe Christians out in the West Bank. It's now going to get more and more people to rethink the American alliance, and it's going to add to the pressure valve. It's going to add to the pressure cooker that Israel is currently lying upon. Because right now you have all this pressure. What happened with the Epstein files? They were telling Trump to release the Epstein files. He didn't want to do it. He said, no, I don't want to do it. Forget about Epstein. And the pressure was so immense that the Trump administration had to acquiesce to a certain point. Yes, did they release all the Epstein files? No. Are there names that are redacted? Absolutely. Are things omitted from the files? Absolutely. But they still gave us a whole bunch of stuff to look at and chew on. Why? Because the pressure was that great. Never underestimate the power of collective pressure. When collective pressure reaches an apex, something has to give and things happen and change is made. And so this is going to add to the pressure against the American-Israeli alliance. Right now, being pro-Israel is not politically advantageous, but in the future, it's going to be even more politically disadvantageous to be pro-Israel. And it's things like this that's going to contribute to this reality.
When Jesus comes and he elevates...
And you see Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is very popular. And one of the reasons why Tucker Carlson is very popular is because of how he looks. How you look plays a big role in how popular you are. Make no mistake about it. Don't let anyone fool you to the contrary. How you look plays a big role on how popular you are going to be. If you are a fat, ugly, obese person, you're not going to be that popular. If you're, I don't know, if you have to have a certain look, all right? I'm not going to give you guys too many details, but you guys know what I'm talking about here. If I give too many details, I might be called discriminatory or something like that, so I don't want to go that far, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Tucker Carlson has the look. He has a very marketable look in American society because he has a very American face. There is such a thing as an American look. Believe me, if you don't think that this is real, one day go to a foreign country and see if you can spot an American tourist. And if you can spot an American tourist, guess what? You know and you recognize the American look. When I went to Italy, I could literally spot an American several blocks away. And I'm not exaggerating. Okay, maybe not several, maybe a block away. I could spot an American. There's a walk, there's a dress code, there's a look. There's something about Americans that makes them unique, just like there's something about every single other nationality that makes them unique. There is an American look. So when you look at Tucker, you can say that guy has an American look. And that American look is very marketable for people to watch him. And so to see Tucker Carlson not kissing Israel's ass, not revering Israel, not being a sycophant towards Israel, and he's doing all the gestures. What? Oh my God. Oh my God. What? Really? You watched your own mother getting shot in the hip? By who? By Israel? Oh, that's crazy. And you're a Christian? I mean, why are we supporting Israel? Why are we supporting this country that's going after our fellow religious kinsmen? This is unbelievable. Oh my God. And all that influences people. And people are going to see this. They're already seeing this. And many people have already seen this. I mean, look, how many views does this video have? Okay, it has 1 million views. What's the total actual number? 1,008,000. I mean, it's going to go up. Obviously, right? The number is going to go up. And I'm telling you, Israel is going to be very upset about this. And how do I know this? Because they were very upset about the interview that Tucker Carlson did with the nun. And I wasn't very clear on what I meant when I said that the nun was not as marketable as this guy. But I'm going to be very, very blunt with you guys. I'm sorry, but the mustache on the nun was not very nice to look at. Okay, it's not nice. It's not marketable. But again, a lot of people watched it, even with the mustache. A lot of people watched it. They didn't care. And even with the mustache, even with the stash on the nun, Israel was intimidated by that interview. You have to put things in perspective here. Like, they were worried about a mustached nun, about a nun with a mustache, because she was talking about about how Israel persecutes Palestinians in the West Bank, and they went crazy over that. So now they're going to see this guy. This guy is clean cut. He can communicate decently well, and he is very, he can familiarize with people and connect with people. And here he is saying, I'm Christian and I watched my own mother getting shot, and Christians are getting persecuted. So this is going to be more effective than the nun, in my estimation here. And so, of course, the Israelis are going to go after this guy. Of course, they're going to try listen, look at what they did to Tony Aguilar. They tried to make that guy look like a criminal. They said, oh, we found some record here. He's a wife beater, blah. They were trying to dig up anything on that guy to defame him, to try to assassinate his character. Why? Because Tony Aguilar said that Israeli soldiers are mowing innocent people down outside of food distribution centers in Gaza. And that was enough to get the Israelis against him. And the Israelis sent their armies of sycophants after him. So they're going to go after this guy. And you know what? Let's read you know what? I'll watch a little bit more of the interview, and then we'll look at the comments, and then we'll look at other things.
Elevates our thinking, when he elevates our outlook on life, when he takes morality to a whole new standard, when he said, you have heard, do not kill. But I tell you, if you look at your brother and you call him raka, Aramaic word for fool or stupid,
That's right.
You just have committed the murder.
Exactly.
And when he said, and remember the context, Jesus was talking to a Jewish audience who were under ruthless Roman occupation.
Yes.
They were persecuted. They were discriminated against. It was very brutal to live under the Roman occupation. But Jesus is telling his followers, love your enemies. Pray for those who
persecute. I really appreciate that he's saying this. He's saying, listen, we weren't interested in doing terrorism. You see, now here's the thing. Just to give you guys a little bit of background on myself, if you guys didn't know already. This guy comes from the same area of the West Bank that my father does. My father was born in the same area that this guy was born in, Beit Sahura. My father is a Beit Sahurian. But my father was brought up Muslim. So this guy's perspective is very different from the perspective that my dad had. My father was raised in Islam, and he was also raised with the idea of Islamic jihad, which is a struggle, but it's also applied to the idea of Islamic holy war. And so my father, you see, my dad was growing up in the same area that this guy grew up in, although my dad's older than this guy. And my father was living under Israeli occupation, and because he was living under that occupation, the idea that my father subscribed to and other people around him subscribed to was that the only way to respond to Israeli occupation is terrorism. And so my father joined this group, and he was a terrorist, and he ended up throwing a bomb on top of a bank and thankfully didn't kill anyone. But he lived the life of a small-time terrorist in the West Bank. But my father ended up converting to Christianity in the early 1990s and ended up really adopting a similar view that this guy has, which is terrorism is not the way. The way is forgiveness and love and compassion, because terrorism is only going to breed more terrorists. Terrorism is only going to breed more terrorism. And really, and I know I might step on some people's shoes here, I might press some people's buttons with this one, but I think that the biggest mistake, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to piss off anybody with this one, but I think that the biggest mistake the Palestinians have ever made was resorting to terrorism. I truly believe that. I think that this guy's mentality is actually much more fruitful and much more helpful, because the Palestinians resorting to terrorism has only gave more justification to Israel to do terrorism themselves, to do Israeli terrorism. So Hamas went into Israel on October the 7th, 2023, and they attacked people. Was that a good idea? No, it wasn't. It wasn't a good idea. And this has been my position since the beginning. This has been my position since day one, that it was a terrible idea, because look at what happened. Gaza's destroyed. Gaza is flattened. At least tens of thousands of people killed. I think it's more. I think it's at least 100,000 people killed in Gaza. Tons of people killed. Tons of lives. Countless lives wasted. And for what? For Jared Kushner and Donald Trump to make some big real estate deals? So a whole bunch of money can be made by a bunch of investors? Really? Was it worth it? And Palestinian terrorism has given leverage to the argument on the other side that Jews are justified in doing terrorism themselves. And that's why, for example, you'll see settlers saying, well, we can kill Palestinians and do whatever we want because Palestinians have done terrorism to us. So it only breeds more violence. And Palestinian terrorism has given much political influence to people like Ben Gvir and Smotrich and the rest of the settler zombies. So it has not really been that great. And so this guy, I think, has the right mentality that, yes, we did see Israelis doing wrong things, but because of Jesus and because of Christianity, we understood that, well, doing terrorism really isn't the best idea.
This is something that we have grown up understanding the very essence and the meaning of this Sermon of the Mount.
Wow. I'm sorry. I've totally derailed your story because I'm just shocked. I really didn't know that was coming. So you're 10 years old. You watch your mother get shot by an Israeli. Okay, so many questions. Why did he do this? Do you know?
This has been just random. They do this not just to Palestinian Christians. I mean, that has been the policy. They do it to the Muslims. They do it to any Palestinian.
So people are going to see this and they're going to think, okay, why are we supporting Israel when they attack and kill Christians? Why are we doing this? And so it's going to make more people question the American-Israeli alliance. And this is the reason why the Israelis are so terrified of these interviews. This is why they'll go after these people. That's why they went after the nun. That's why they're going after Tucker Carlson and calling him Carlson. This is what Mark Levine calls Mr. Carlson. Carlson. That's why they go after these people, because Israel knows if we lose the American conservative base, we will lose our final proxy to maintain America's support for Israel. Because the reason why, or one of the biggest reasons why politicians will support Israel is because of the pro-Israel evangelical base. It's the Hucksterby base. That's one of the biggest reasons. And so if they lose that evangelical support, then there is nothing left. There is no other reason for a politician to be pro-Israel. There is nothing left to make being pro-Israel politically advantageous for an American candidate.
Palestinians.
Did she survive?
She did. Miraculous. The bullet was just millimeters away from the spine.
It was an American rifle, I assume.
Who knows?
Of course.
We don't know the soldier.
5.56 round, right? Okay, so that's my next question. So some soldier, your mother wasn't throwing rocks at him or screaming for jihad or anything.
We were just playing in front of the house. We were just kids playing.
How can you live in this country?
You see this right here. This is really gonna sting the Israelis. We were just kids. What? So you guys weren't terrorists? No. We were just kids. They shot us. They shot my mom. We weren't doing anything. Oh, shit. So all this talk about, well, Israel's doing this to fight against terrorism, all that's just one giant facade. Yeah, it's just one big, massive facade. They'll go after innocent people.
And listen to people who have no idea what they're talking about.
So this is the real threat of the new settlements, okay? It's not just taking Christian land. It's not acquiring and taking by force the resources of the land, of Christian land, who lived there for generations. It's inviting violent settlers to your neighborhood.
Yep, that's right.
They're coming to take the land. They're coming to squeeze. They're coming to crush.
That's right. That's what they're going to do. That is what they're going to do. And the Christians are very stubborn, and they are not going to give in. And so the question is, what are these Jewish settlers going to do with a bunch of obstinate Christians? Are they just going to let them live there? I think eventually what's going to happen, and I've said this before, but I think eventually what's going to happen is the fanatics in Israel are going to say, well, they don't want to leave. We're just going to look for a reason to kill them. We're going to say, oh, well, there's terrorists amongst them. These Christians are anti-Semitic, whatever. And they're going to kill the Christians.